In the sprawling tapestry of history, few threads are as vibrant and enduring as the story of Rome. This is the tale of its mythical genesis, a saga of gods and mortals, of brotherhood and betrayal, that laid the foundation for an empire that would shape the Western world. Our story begins not with a city, but with a prophecy. In the ancient kingdom of Alba Longa, King Numitor is usurped by his cruel and ambitious brother Amulius, the new king, haunted by a prophecy that the twin sons of Numitor's daughter, Rhea Silvia, would one day overthrow him, issues a chilling decree. The infant boys are to be cast into the Tiber River, left to the mercy of its unforgiving currents. But fate, it seems, had other plans. The basket carrying the twins does not sink but washes ashore, coming to rest at the foot of the Palatine Hill. Here, in a moment that would become legendary, they are discovered by a she-wolf, the Lupa, who miraculously nurses the helpless infants. Their story takes another turn when they are found by a kind-hearted shepherd named Faustulus, who, with his wife, raises the boys Romulus and Remus as his own sons. The twins grow into strong and natural leaders, their noble lineage shining through their humble upbringing. Upon learning their true identity, they return to Alba Longa, fulfill the prophecy by killing Amulius, and restore their grandfather Numitor to his rightful throne. With their duty done, they set out to found a city of their own on the very hills where their lives were saved. However, the brothers soon fall into a bitter dispute over which hill to build upon, Romulus favoring the Palatine and Remus the Aventine. To settle the matter, they turn to augury, seeking a sign from the gods. Remus is the first to see a sign, 6 vultures flying overhead. But soon after, Romulus sees 12. Each claims divine favor, and their argument escalates. In a moment of defiant mockery, Remus leaps over the partially constructed walls of Romulus's fledgling settlement. Consumed by a fit of rage and feeling his authority challenged, Romulus strikes his brother down. On that tragic day, April 21st, 703 BC, with his brother's blood staining the sacred ground, Romulus founds his city, naming it Rome. Rome grew from this tumultuous beginning, ruled by a succession of 7 kings, starting with the legendary Romulus himself. This era saw the city's population and influence expand, but it was not to last forever. The reign of the final king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, known as Tarquinius the Proud, was defined by cruelty and tyranny, pushing the Roman people to their breaking point. In 509 BC, the Roman nobility, galvanized by the leadership of Lucius Junius Brutus, rose up and expelled the despotic king and his family. Standing amidst the echoes of their revolution, they made a solemn vow. Never again would Rome be ruled by a king. With this declaration, the Roman monarchy was dismantled and the Roman Republic was born, heralding a new chapter for the city on the 7 hills. The early Republic was a period of intense internal strife, primarily marked by the conflict of the orders between the wealthy, land-owning patricians and the common plebeians who sought greater political rights. This struggle for equality eventually led to one of the Republic's greatest achievements, the creation of the Law of the 12 Tables. These laws, inscribed on bronze tablets and displayed in the Forum, were Rome's first codified legal system, ensuring that justice was transparent and applied to all citizens. As Rome began to stabilize its internal political order, its gaze turned outward. The Republic's burgeoning power brought it into direct conflict with its formidable neighbors, the Samnites, igniting a series of long and brutal wars for control of the Italian peninsula. This was the crucible in which the Roman legions were forged, setting the stage for centuries of conquest and expansion. Thus concludes the epic origin of Rome, a city born from legend, stained by fratricide, and forged in the fires of revolution and war. Its story serves as a powerful reminder of how the grandest of empires can spring from the most dramatic of beginnings, leaving a legacy that continues to echo through the ages.
In the heart of ancient Italy, long before the rise of emperors and the vast expanse of empire, the young Roman Republic fought for its very survival. This was not a battle against a distant foreign power, but a desperate, century-long struggle against a rival that was just as fierce, just as determined, and just as Italian, the Samnites. This is the story of how Rome was forged in the crucible of the Samnite Wars, a conflict that would define its destiny and pave the way for its conquest of the world. The first clash came unexpectedly. For centuries, the Samnites, A powerful confederation of highland warriors from the Apennine Mountains had been the dominant force in central Italy. But in 343 BC, their expansionist ambitions collided with Rome's when the city of Capua, threatened by Samnite aggression, pleaded for Roman protection. The First Samnite War was short but sharp. In the ensuing battles, the disciplined Roman legions faced the ferocious Samnite warriors for the first time. Though the conflict ended in a fragile truce, Rome had proven it was a power to be reckoned with, setting the stage for a much larger, more devastating confrontation. That confrontation, the Second Samnite War, erupted in 326 BC and would rage for over 2 decades. It was a brutal slog fought in the treacherous mountain passes of Samnium. The war's most infamous moment came in 321 BC at the Caudine Forks. The Samnite general, Gaius Pontius, brilliantly outmaneuvered the Romans, luring 2 entire consular armies into a narrow, inescapable gorge. Trapped and facing starvation, the Romans were forced into the ultimate humiliation. In a scene that would be seared into the Roman psyche, the disarmed soldiers were forced to pass, one by one, under a yoke of spears, a profound symbol of subjugation. This disgrace, however, did not break Rome. It remade it. The Republic responded with grim determination, initiating sweeping military reforms. The rigid Greek-style phalanx was abandoned for the flexible manipular legion, a system of smaller, more adaptable units perfectly suited for mountain warfare. Rome then launched a relentless counteroffensive. Legions pushed deep into enemy territory, building fortified roads and systematically dismantling Samnite strongholds. This long, grinding war of attrition culminated in the decisive Roman victory at the Battle of Bovianum in 304 BC, forcing the exhausted Samnites to sue for peace. But the struggle was not over. In 298 BC, the Samnites made one final, desperate bid for freedom in the Third Samnite War. They forged a grand coalition of Italian peoples: Etruscans, Umbrians, and Gauls, all united by their fear of the rising Roman giant. The fate of Italy was decided at the epic Battle of Sentinum in 295 BC. As the massive coalition army clashed with the legions, the Roman line faltered. In a legendary act of self-sacrifice, the consul Publius Decius must perform the asterisk devotio asterisk, charging alone into the enemy ranks to his death to rally his men and secure divine favor. His sacrifice turned the tide. The coalition was shattered, and the Samnites were finally defeated. With the Samnite surrender in 290 BC, the wars that had defined a generation finally came to an end. Rome had not just survived, it had triumphed. By conquering its greatest rival, the Roman Republic cemented its position as the undisputed master of the Italian peninsula, setting its sights on the Mediterranean and the empire that awaited. In the 3rd century BCE, the Mediterranean was a stage set for a monumental collision. On one side stood Carthage, a formidable maritime empire built on trade, its fleets dominating the western seas from its magnificent North African port. On the other, the burgeoning Roman Republic, a land-based juggernaut that had relentlessly unified the Italian peninsula, its disciplined legions hungry for expansion. Their worlds were destined to clash, and the prize was the sun-drenched, strategic island of Sicily. The conflict ignited in the city of Messana, pulling the 2 powers into a direct confrontation. Recognizing their naval inferiority, the Romans made a bold and audacious move. After capturing a Carthaginian quinquereme, they reverse-engineered it, building an entire fleet of over 100 warships in a remarkably short time. But replication wasn't enough. They needed to innovate. They equipped their new ships with the Corvus, a revolutionary boarding bridge with a heavy spike. This device allowed them to grapple onto enemy vessels, turning chaotic naval skirmishes into brutal, close-quarters infantry battles on deck where their superior legionaries excelled. The First Punic War became a grueling 23-year war of attrition, a relentless meat grinder of men and resources. Ultimately, at the Battle of the Aegates Islands, Rome's naval might prevailed, shattering the Carthaginian fleet and forcing a depleted Carthage to sue for peace. The terms were harsh. Sicily was ceded to Rome, and a crippling war indemnity was imposed. The peace that followed was anything but peaceful for Carthage. Bankrupted by the war and the Roman indemnity, the state couldn't pay its vast army of mercenaries, sparking the brutal and bloody mercenary war. As Carthage fought for its very survival at home, Rome saw an opportunity. In an act of cynical aggression, the Romans seized the islands of Sardinia and Corsica, a profound humiliation that stoked the fires of vengeance within the Carthaginian elite. No one felt this sting more acutely than Hamilcar Barca, a brilliant general who had fought with distinction in Sicily. Filled with a burning hatred for Rome, he led his army to Spain, determined to carve out a new empire, a Barcid dominion, to restore Carthage's wealth and forge a weapon for his revenge. In Spain, Hamilcar's ambition took on a deeply personal and almost mythical dimension. He brought his 9-year-old son, Hannibal, before a sacred altar and made him swear a solemn oath to never be a friend to Rome, to forever be its enemy. This oath would define Hannibal's life. The Barcid family achieved stunning success, conquering vast swaths of the Iberian Peninsula through a mix of diplomacy and military genius. They built a new capital, Carthago Nova, and amassed immense silver wealth from Spanish mines. Most importantly, they trained a new, professional army, a hardened force of Iberian, African, and Gallic warriors loyal not to Carthage, but to the Barca family. After Hamilcar fell in battle and his successor Hasdrubal was assassinated, the army unanimously acclaimed the young adult Hannibal as their commander. Forged in his father's camps and schooled in warfare from childhood, he was the living embodiment of Carthaginian vengeance. With his formidable army at his back, Hannibal moved to consolidate his power and test the limits of Roman tolerance. The flashpoint came at the city of Saguntum. Though south of the Ebro River, a line loosely agreed upon as a boundary for their spheres of influence, Saguntum had declared itself an ally of Rome, viewing the city as a dagger aimed at the heart of his Spanish territory. Hannibal laid siege to it in a direct and defiant challenge to Roman authority. After a brutal 8-month siege, Saguntum fell. A furious Roman embassy arrived at Hannibal's camp, delivering an ultimatum: surrender or face war. Hannibal's rejection was swift and absolute. War was declared, the final scene was set. A resolute Hannibal stood with his veteran army, his gaze fixed northward toward the seemingly impassable, snow-capped peaks of the Alps. His legendary invasion of Italy was about to begin.
History is often defined by its great rivalries, but few can match the sheer scale and consequence of the one that pitted a Carthaginian genius against a Roman prodigy. This is the story of two titans, Hannibal Barca and Scipio Africanus, whose clash of wills would determine the fate of empires. Our story begins not on a battlefield but at an altar. A 9-year-old boy, Hannibal, places his hand on a sacrifice and swears an oath to his father, the great general Hamilcar Barca. He vows that as long as he lives, he will forever be an enemy of Rome. Years later, that vow echoes through the snow-capped peaks of the Alps. Hannibal, now a commander of unparalleled charisma, leads a vast army of mercenaries and, most famously, his war elephants, on an audacious trek across the mountains. This seemingly impossible feat is just the beginning. In a stunning display of military brilliance, Hannibal descends into Italy and inflicts a series of devastating defeats upon the Roman Republic. At the Trebia River, he lays a masterful ambush. At Lake Trasimene, he annihilates an entire consular army. And at Cannae, he executes a perfect double envelopment, a tactical masterpiece that results in one of the bloodiest days in Roman history. For over a decade, Hannibal rampages through Italy, a specter of defeat haunting the very gates of Rome. But from the ashes of these disasters, a new Roman hero emerges. Publius Cornelius Scipio, a young aristocrat who barely survived the slaughter at Cannae, does not despair. Instead, he studies. He obsesses over Hannibal's tactics, dissecting every feint, every ambush, every audacious maneuver. He learns from the man who has brought his people to the brink of ruin. Given command in Spain, Scipio puts these lessons into practice. He captures the enemy's capital, Carthago Nova, in a surprise assault and systematically drives the Carthaginian forces from the Iberian Peninsula. He proves himself to be not just a student of Hannibal but his equal, a commander with his own brand of audacity and strategic genius. The stage is being set for an epic confrontation. With Spain secured, Scipio proposes a daring and controversial plan to the Roman Senate: take the war to Africa. Instead of chasing Hannibal's phantom army around Italy, he argues, Rome must strike at the heart of the enemy, Carthage itself. The strategy is a gamble, but it pays off, as Scipio's legions land and begin winning victories on Carthaginian soil. A panicked Carthage recalls its greatest general. After 15 years in enemy territory, Hannibal is forced to abandon his Italian campaign. his ultimate goal of conquering Rome itself left unfulfilled. He returns to his homeland not as a triumphant conqueror, but as its last and only hope for survival. The endgame arrives on the dusty plains of Zama. The two greatest generals of their age finally face each other across a battlefield. On one side, Hannibal, with his veteran infantry and a terrifying screen of 80 war elephants. On the other, Scipio, with his disciplined Roman legions and superior cavalry. The two commanders, mounted on horseback, survey the opposing lines, a silent acknowledgement of the moment's historic weight. The battle commences with the thunderous charge of Hannibal's elephants, but Scipio is prepared. He has trained his men to open lanes in their formation, channeling the panicked beasts harmlessly through their ranks while peppering them with javelins. In the chaos, Scipio's cavalry, led by his Numidian ally Massinissa, smashes the Carthaginian horsemen and sweeps them from the field. The infantry lines then crash together in a brutal, grinding struggle. For a time, Hannibal's veterans seem to have the upper hand, but just as they are about to claim victory, Scipio's cavalry returns, slamming into the Carthaginian rear. Outflanked and surrounded, Hannibal's legendary army is finally broken. The battle is lost, and with it the war. Hannibal, the boogeyman of Rome, becomes a fugitive, living out his days in exile at the courts of foreign kings, forever hunted by the city he once swore to destroy. He remains a respected but ultimately tragic figure, a military genius who came closer than anyone to breaking Rome's power. The rivalry between Hannibal and Scipio was more than a contest of generals. It was a crucible that forged the Roman Empire. Their story stands as a timeless epic of strategy, ambition, and the thin line that separates victory from defeat, forever etching their names into the annals of history. Half a century after Hannibal's devastating war against Rome, Carthage was a shadow of its former self. Bound by a treaty that stripped it of its empire and military power, it was a wealthy merchant city, but a client state nonetheless. Yet in Rome, fear and hatred lingered. For years, the influential senator Cato the Elder had ended every speech on any subject with the same chilling words: Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed. Rome was not seeking peace, it was seeking an excuse. That excuse came from Carthage's aggressive neighbor Numidia. Goaded by Numidian raids on their territory, Carthage finally raised an army to defend itself, a direct violation of their treaty with Rome, which forbade any military action without Roman consent. This was the moment Rome had been waiting for. In 149 BCE, the Senate declared war. The Third Punic War had begun. Rome's initial demands were absolute: surrender 300 noble children as hostages and hand over all weapons. The Carthaginians, desperate to avoid war, complied. But then came the final impossible demand: abandon your city and resettle 10 miles inland, away from the sea that was your lifeblood. It was a death sentence, and Carthage chose to fight. The city's massive fortifications, with some sections protected by a triple line of walls, resisted everything the Romans could throw at them. For 2 years, the siege faltered. The Romans, led by incompetent consuls, suffered from disease and failed assaults, while Carthaginian ships managed to break the blockade and bring in supplies. The tide turned in 147 BCE with the arrival of a new commander, Scipio Aemilianus, the adopted grandson of the man who defeated Hannibal. Energetic and brilliant, Scipio restored discipline and began a systematic strangulation of the city. His most audacious project was a massive stone mole built across the mouth of the harbor to permanently cut off all sea access. In a final, heroic act of defiance, the Carthaginians performed a miracle. While Scipio's mole was being built, they secretly constructed a new fleet of 50 ships within the city and dug a new channel to the sea. They emerged to the complete surprise of the Romans, but the advantage was squandered. After a brief, indecisive engagement, they retreated. It was their last hope. In the spring of 146 BCE, the final assault began. Scipio's legions breached the walls and poured into the city. What followed was not a battle, but a week of slaughter. The Romans fought house to house, street to street, showing no mercy. The city became a vision of hell. After 6 days of brutal fighting, the last Carthaginian defenders, cornered in the citadel of Byrsa, surrendered. Of a population that may have exceeded 250,000, only 50,000 remained. They were all sold into slavery. Scipio ordered the city to be systematically demolished, burned, and razed to the ground. A curse was placed upon the soil, forbidding anyone from ever living there again. The land that was once Carthage became the Roman province of Africa, a breadbasket for its new master. The Punic civilization, which had contended with Rome for mastery of the Mediterranean for over a century, was wiped from the face of the earth. In the annals of history, few conquests were as consequential as Rome's subjugation of the Hellenistic world. It was a clash of civilizations, the pragmatic martial discipline of the rising republic against the brilliant, fractured legacy of Alexander the Great. Our story begins not with one man, but with the twilight of an era. The Greek city-states, once beacons of culture and power, now stood divided, ripe for conquest. The first major challenge to Roman expansion came from Macedon, the heartland of Alexander's empire. Its final king, Perseus, stood as the last bulwark of the old order. He mustered his armies, clinging to the glorious tactics of his forefathers. At the Battle of Pydna in 168 BC, the formidable Macedonian phalanx met the flexible Roman legion. It was a clash of eras. The legions outmaneuvered the rigid phalanx, shattering the illusion of Macedonian invincibility. Perseus was captured, paraded through the streets of Rome in chains, a symbol of a fallen kingdom. Greece was now under the Roman heel. But the Greek spirit was not so easily extinguished. Decades of simmering resentment festered under Roman rule. It would find a new formidable champion in the east, Mithridates VI, king of Pontus. A charismatic, brilliant, and ruthless monarch who saw himself as the great avenger of the Greeks. He built a vast empire and, in a paranoid obsession, systematically ingested poisons to build immunity, preparing for a lifelong war against the Republic. His challenge was declared in the most brutal fashion imaginable. In 88 BC, on a single horrific day known as the Asiatic Vespers, tens of thousands of Roman and Italian settlers across Anatolia were massacred on his orders. It was an act of genocide that shook Rome to its core. The Republic, reeling from the blow, unleashed its finest generals. A series of epic conflicts, the Mithridatic Wars, raged for decades. The wars were long and bloody, but the ultimate betrayal came not from Rome, but from within. His own son, Pharnaces, led a rebellion, tired of a seemingly endless war. Cornered in his last stronghold in Pantikapaon, with his armies abandoning him, the great king's world crumbled. In his final, desperate moments, Mithridates attempted to take his own life with the poison he had mastered. It was his final tragic irony. The poison that he had shared with his loyal daughters killed them but failed to fell the king himself. His own immunity had become his final prison. Robbed of even the choice of his own death, Mithridates turned to his loyal Gallic bodyguard and commanded him to do what the poison could not. A sword thrust ended the life of Rome's most persistent enemy. Rome had won the war of swords and shields, but in the quiet halls of its villas and forums, another, more subtle conquest was taking place. Rome, the conqueror, became captivated by the culture of the conquered. Greek art, philosophy, and literature flooded the capital. In the end, as the poet Horace would later write, captive Greece took its brutish conqueror captive. A military victory for Rome, but a timeless cultural victory for Greece. Have you ever wondered what happens when a republic, forged in centuries of tradition, begins to devour itself? To understand this, we must journey back to the twilight of the Roman Republic, a time when ambition and honor were measured in legions and blood. In one corner stood Gaius Marius, the new man, a brilliant general hailed as the third founder of Rome. In the other, Lucius Cornelius Sulla, an aristocrat with a thirst for glory and a lineage that demanded it. Their story isn't just a personal feud, it's the death rattle of a republic, a brutal symphony of pride, politics, and civil war that would pave the way for Caesar and the emperors. This is the collision of two titans, the epic struggle between Marius and Sulla that set Rome on an irreversible path to empire. From the dusty Italian countryside, Gaius Marius rose through the ranks on sheer talent, not by birthright. He was an outsider, a novus homo, who shattered the aristocratic glass ceiling of Roman politics. His military reforms were revolutionary, creating a professional army loyal not to the state but to their general, to him. He saved Rome from Germanic invaders, earning an unprecedented 7 consulships and the adoration of the common people. But as his star ascended, the Senate's old guard grew wary. When the lucrative command against King Mithridates was given to his younger patrician rival Sulla, Marius felt the sting of betrayal. To him, it was more than a lost command. It was a denial of his honor, his dignitas, by the very elites he had always fought to overcome. He saw Sulla as a symbol of the decadent aristocracy, stealing the glory he had rightfully earned through sweat and victory. Lucius Cornelius Sulla, however, saw the world through a different lens. He was a patrician to the core, believing that leadership was his birthright, a duty inherited from his ancestors. He had served under Marius, learning the art of war, but always felt the condescension of his low-born commander. Sulla was charming, ruthless, and possessed an unshakable belief in his own destiny. When the Senate granted him the command against Mithridates, he saw it as the natural order of things, a prestigious war for a man of prestigious birth. Marius's political maneuvering to strip him of this command was, in Sulla's eyes, an illegal and vulgar power grab by a demagogue. He believed Marius was tearing apart the fabric of the Republic for personal gain. For Sulla, marching his legions on Rome, an act previously unthinkable, was not treason. It was a righteous, if brutal, necessity to restore order and defend the authority of the Senate from a popular tyrant. The clash, when it came, was cataclysmic. Sulla, in an unprecedented move, turned his Roman legions against Rome itself, forcing Marius to flee into exile in Africa. But the moment Sulla departed for the east to fight Mithridates, Marius returned, his heart black with vengeance. Allied with the consul Cinna, he unleashed a bloody purge on Sulla's supporters in the city. The streets of Rome ran red. When Sulla finally returned victorious from his eastern campaign, he was met with a new Marian army. The civil war that followed was merciless, culminating in Sulla's decisive victory at the Colline Gate. He declared himself dictator, not for a limited term, but indefinitely. He posted proscription lists, condemning thousands of his enemies to death and seizing their property. The old republic, with its delicate balance of power and cherished norms, was dead. Sulla had hoped to restore it, but in saving it, he had shown every ambitious Roman to come the ultimate path to power, through the blood of their countrymen. So when we look back at the smoldering ruins of the Roman Republic, we see more than just a political collapse. We see a human tragedy fueled by personal animosity. The rivalry between Marius and Sulla wasn't simply a footnote in history, it was the prologue to its end. They broke the ultimate taboo, using Roman soldiers to kill Roman citizens for political power, creating a precedent that could never be undone. Their conflict demonstrated that the legions were the true arbiters of power, and that the honor of one man could outweigh the survival of the state. In the end, their epic struggle wasn't just about who would lead Rome, but about what Rome would become. The Republic was the ultimate casualty, its ideals bleeding out on the battlefield of their ambition, leaving a void that only an emperor could fill. The Roman Republic, master of the known world, believed its power absolute, but its greatest challenge would come not from a foreign king, but from within its own cruel heart. It began in the ludus, the gladiator schools, factories where men were stripped of their names, their pasts, and their humanity, and remade into instruments of death for the arena's fleeting entertainment. Here life was cheap, and a glorious death was the highest price one could achieve. In the school of Capua, among the damned, was a Thracian named Spartacus. He was once a soldier, now a slave, and he had not forgotten the meaning of freedom. In 73 BC, the breaking point was reached. A handful of gladiators with nothing but kitchen knives and the fury of the oppressed fought their way out of hell. This single act of defiance became a beacon. An avalanche of the dispossessed answered the call. Slaves, shepherds, and peasants all united by their chains. From dozens, they became thousands, then tens of thousands. At Mount Vesuvius, they outwitted a Roman army, rappelling down sheer cliffs on ropes made of vines to attack where none thought possible. They were no longer a mob. They were an army, and they were winning. But they were divided. Some, like the fierce Crixus, thirsted for plunder and revenge. Spartacus, however, dreamed of escape, of leading his people over the Alps out of Italy and home. Rome, arrogant and complacent, was humiliated. 2 consular legions, the very symbols of Roman might, were sent and annihilated. Panic gripped the Senate. The social order was cracking. Into this power vacuum stepped Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome. Driven by a cold, calculating ambition, He did not ask for command. He bought it, raising an army with his own immense wealth. He reforged the legions in fear, resurrecting the horrific punishment of decimation to restore discipline. Crassus was not fighting for Rome. He was investing in his own glory. He hunted Spartacus relentlessly, trapping the rebel army at the very toe of Italy with a colossal wall. The dream of freedom was now a cage. In a final cataclysmic battle, Spartacus, knowing the end was near, sought not escape but a reckoning. He carved a path of destruction through the legions, aiming for one man, Crassus. But the machine of Rome was too vast. He was overwhelmed, falling as he had lived, a free man fighting on his own terms. The rebellion was crushed. Crassus's vengeance was absolute. 6,000 survivors were crucified along the Appian Way, a 200-kilometer avenue of agony to remind any slave who dared to dream. Yet as Crassus savored his brutal victory, his rival Pompey the Great returned from Spain, crushed a few remaining fugitives, and shamelessly wrote to the Senate, claiming he had plucked the war up by the roots. The stage was set for another civil war between two powerful egomaniacal generals, but a third player, the cunning Julius Caesar, saw an opportunity. He brokered a truce, uniting the three of them in a secret pact to control the state, the First Triumvirate. The Republic, mortally wounded by a slaves' rebellion, was now at the mercy of the very strong men its fear had created. Spartacus had lost his war, but in doing so, he had exposed the rot in Rome and hastened the death of the Republic itself. In the annals of history, few campaigns have shaped the course of an empire as profoundly as the Gallic Wars. By 58 BC, the Roman Republic was a cauldron of ambition. For one man, Gaius Julius Caesar, the governorship of Gaul was not just a duty, but a stepping stone to ultimate power. But the lands he coveted were not untamed wilderness. Gaul was a complex and thriving civilization. Its people were organized into hundreds of tribes, living in fortified settlements called oppida. From the fertile fields where farmers cultivated grains, to the fiery forges where blacksmiths crafted renowned longswords and intricate golden torques, Gallic society was a mosaic of skill and tradition. At its heart were the Druids, not just priests, but also judges, teachers, and keepers of ancestral knowledge, wielding immense influence over all aspects of life. Caesar saw this rich but disunited world as the key to his political and military future. The campaign began under the pretext of defending Roman allies, but soon evolved into a full-scale conquest. From the forests of Germania to the shores of Britannia, Caesar's legions marched relentlessly. But the spirit of Gaul would not be so easily broken. A charismatic chieftain, Vercingetorix, united the warring tribes. He initiated a scorched earth policy, hoping to starve the invaders. The ultimate confrontation came at Alesia. In a masterpiece of military engineering, Caesar besieged Vercingetorix's forces. But then a massive Gallic relief army arrived, besieging Caesar's own men. Against all odds, the disciplined Roman legions held. Starvation forced Vercingetorix to surrender himself to Caesar to save his people. He was paraded in Rome, imprisoned, and publicly executed 6 years later. His defeat marked the end of Gallic independence and the beginning of Roman Gaul, a conquest that would echo through eternity. The ambition of a great man, when it consumes him, can burn an empire to the ground. In the twilight of the Roman Republic, one man's shadow loomed large, not for his victories, but for his wealth. Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome, found his soul gnawed by a bitter envy. He watched the adoring crowds cheer for Pompey the Great and heard whispered legends of Caesar's conquests in Gaul. Though he was the financial pillar of their triumvirate, his name lacked the one thing he craved above all else: military glory. His obsession with Parthia was not a matter of statecraft. It was a desperate gamble to carve his own legend, a final, reckless grasp for a legacy to rival the gods of war. This march into the East was not a campaign. It was a pilgrimage of pride. Crassus, blinded by arrogance, waved away the counsel of his seasoned legates who urged a safer route along the Euphrates River. He saw caution as an insult to his destiny. When ill omens plagued the legion, standards that could not be pulled from the earth, he laughed them off, a man convinced his fortune could command fate itself. His impatience for glory made him a willing fool. He placed his trust in a treacherous guide who promised a shortcut. for Crassus saw only the glimmering gold of Parthia ahead, not the endless waiting sands of the Syrian desert that would become his army's tomb. At the Battle of Carrhae, Crassus's hubris met its brutal end. The master of the political forum was a child on the battlefield, confused and indecisive as Parthian horse archers decimated his legions. His wealth was useless against the storm of arrows. The true price of his ambition was paid in blood when his son, Publius, was sent into a trap his father had failed to see. The tragic climax arrived not with a roar, but with a silent, agonizing realization. As Crassus stared at his beloved son's severed head paraded on a spear, he saw his ambitions harvest, his legacy, his family, his honor, all consumed by his own desperate pride. His end was a grim piece of theater, a final mockery orchestrated by his own failings. Lured into a false truce, the great manipulator was outmaneuvered one last time. The legend of molten gold being poured down his throat served as the ultimate damning symbol of his life. The wealth he worshipped became the instrument of his final humiliation, forever branding his name not with glory, but with insatiable greed. The tragedy of Crassus is that his personal quest to secure a legacy is precisely what destroyed it. In chasing a shadow, he not only led thousands to their graves, but also shattered the fragile peace of Rome, unleashing the very civil war that would drown the Republic in blood.
In the twilight of the Roman Republic, power was held in a delicate balance by three men: Julius Caesar, the conqueror of Gaul, Pompey the Great, the celebrated general, and the immensely wealthy Marcus Licinius Crassus. This first triumvirate was an uneasy alliance, bound by ambition and marriage. But the balance was shattered when Crassus fell in battle against the Parthians, and soon after, Caesar's daughter Julia, who was Pompey's wife, died in childbirth. The personal bond that had papered over the political cracks was gone. In Rome, the Senate, championing Pompey, grew fearful of Caesar's immense popularity and his loyal, battle-hardened legions. They issued a decree. Caesar must relinquish his command and return to Rome as a private citizen, where he would surely face prosecution from his enemies. Caesar, cornered, proposed compromises, but they were all rejected. At the banks of the Rubicon, the legal boundary of Italy, he faced his choice: submit to his rivals or plunge the Republic into civil war. In the winter of 49 BC, with the words, "Alea iacta est," the die is cast, he led his army across the river. Caesar's advance was shockingly fast. City after city opened its gates to him. The unprepared Pompey and his senatorial allies were forced into a chaotic retreat, abandoning Rome and then Italy itself. They sailed east to Greece, where Pompey planned to leverage his vast resources and control of the seas to build an overwhelming force. After a brief but brilliant campaign to secure Spain, Caesar followed. The initial clashes in Greece were inconclusive. At the siege of Dyrrhachium, Pompey's larger army inflicted a stinging defeat on Caesar, who was forced into a difficult retreat. This victory made Pompey's camp overconfident. They pushed for a decisive battle against Pompey's own better judgment of a war of attrition. The final showdown came on the plains of Pharsalus. Pompey's army vastly outnumbered Caesar's, especially in cavalry, which he massed on one flank to crush Caesar's legions. But Caesar had anticipated this. He had hidden a fourth line of his best infantry, ordering them not to throw their javelins, but to use them as spears to jab at the faces of the enemy horsemen. The tactic was brutal and brilliant. Pompey's cavalry, composed of young nobles who feared disfigurement, broke and fled, leaving his infantry's flank exposed. The result was a catastrophic, decisive victory for Caesar. Pompey fled the field a broken man. He sought refuge in the one place he thought he would be safe: Egypt, a kingdom he had once been a patron to. But the advisors to the young King Ptolemy III, the eunuch Pothinus and General Achillas, made a cold calculation. To win the favor of the seemingly inevitable victor, they decided to murder the loser. As Pompey the Great stepped onto the Egyptian shore, he was betrayed and stabbed to death. When Caesar arrived in pursuit, he was presented with a gruesome gift: Pompey's severed head and signet ring. It is said that Caesar, far from being pleased, wept for the tragic end of his rival, his former son-in-law, and one of Rome's greatest sons. The victory was his, but it was a victory that signaled the death of the Republic and the dawn of a new, uncertain era under the absolute power of one man.
The year is 44 BC. Rome, a republic for centuries, now bows to one man, Gaius Julius Caesar. Having been declared dictator in perpetuo, dictator for life, Caesar stands at the apex of power. His reforms are popular with the people, but his ambition has sown deep mistrust among the senatorial class. They see not a savior of Rome, but a king in all but name, a threat to the very foundations of the republic. A conspiracy begins to fester in the shadowy corners of the Senate House. Led by the ambitious Cassius and the noble yet torn Brutus, a group of senators plots to end Caesar's reign. They call themselves the Liberators, believing they are acting to save Rome from tyranny. Brutus, whom Caesar loved like a son, is the tragic heart of this plot, convinced that his love for Rome must outweigh his love for his friend. The Ides of March 15th arrives, a day foretold by soothsayers as one of great danger for Caesar. Ignoring the warnings of his wife Calpurnia and a note of warning pressed into his hand, Caesar proceeds to the theater of Pompey, where the Senate is to meet. As he enters, the conspirators surround him. One by one, they draw their daggers. The final blow, as legend tells it, comes from Brutus. "Et tu, Brute? You too, Brutus?" Caesar whispers as he falls, his lifeblood staining the Senate floor. The assassination, meant to restore the Republic, instead plunges Rome into chaos. The conspirators, far from being hailed as heroes, are met with a stunned and angry populace. At Caesar's funeral, Mark Antony, his loyal lieutenant, delivers a masterful speech, turning the tide of public opinion against the assassins and igniting a new civil war. The power vacuum left by Caesar's death is immense. A struggle for control ensues between Caesar's heir, Octavian, and his most trusted general, Mark Antony. This conflict will ultimately lead to the final collapse of the Roman Republic and the birth of the Roman Empire, with Octavian, renamed Augustus, as its first emperor. The legacy of Caesar's assassination is not the liberty the conspirators dreamed of, but the rise of an even more absolute power, an empire forged in the fires of his betrayal. In 44 BC, the heart of the Roman Republic was torn out. Julius Caesar, dictator for life, lay dead on the floor of the Senate, stabbed 23 times by his own colleagues. His assassination didn't restore the Republic as the conspirators had hoped. Instead, it plunged Rome into a bloody power vacuum. The city was a chessboard, and the remaining pieces were about to play a game for the ultimate prize: the world. From the chaos, three men emerged, forging an uneasy alliance to hunt down Caesar's killers and carve up the Republic. This was the second triumvirate: Marcus Lepidus, a powerful statesman; Mark Antony, Caesar's charismatic and battle-hardened right-hand man; and a new, unexpected player, Gaius Octavian, Caesar's grandnephew and adopted son, a cunning and ambitious youth barely 19 years old. With Caesar's assassins defeated, the triumvirate's unity began to fray. Lepidus was sidelined, leaving the two titans, Antony and Octavian, to stare each other down across the Mediterranean. Antony, taking control of the wealthy eastern provinces, traveled to Tarsus to meet the ruler of Egypt. It was there he encountered Queen Cleopatra. More than just a political meeting, their encounter sparked one of history's most legendary romances. Captivated by her intellect and charm, Antony soon made Alexandria his home, fathering 3 children with the Egyptian queen and becoming entangled in the opulent politics of the Ptolemaic court. Back in Rome, Octavian, a master of propaganda, saw his chance. He skillfully painted Antony not as a Roman general, but as an Eastern despot, bewitched by a foreign queen and a traitor to his Roman heritage. He fueled public outrage by revealing Antony's will, which declared his children with Cleopatra as his heirs and expressed his wish to be buried in Alexandria. To the Roman people, this was the ultimate betrayal. The Senate declared war, not on Antony but on Cleopatra, cleverly framing the coming conflict as a defense of Roman values against a foreign threat. The final act of this epic struggle was set for September 2nd, 31st BC, in the waters off the coast of Actium in western Greece. 2 colossal fleets faced each other under the morning sun. Octavian's force, commanded by his brilliant general Marcus Agrippa, consisted of smaller, more agile Liburnian ships. Antony and Cleopatra commanded a fleet of massive quinqueremes, floating fortresses bristling with soldiers. The tension was palpable as the lines of ships stretching for miles held their positions. Then the horns blared and the sea erupted into chaos. Agrippa's ships swarmed Antony's larger vessels, ramming their sides and raining down projectiles from catapults. Marines swung across on grappling hooks, turning the decks into bloody battlegrounds amid splintering wood and billowing smoke. For hours, the battle raged with no clear winner. Then the inexplicable happened. A squadron of 60 Egyptian ships with Cleopatra herself on the flagship suddenly broke formation and sailed away from the battle, heading south. The tide of the battle hadn't yet turned decisively against them, making the retreat a shocking mystery. But what followed was even more stunning. As his men fought and died, Mark Antony, a general famed for his courage, caught sight of Cleopatra's departing sail. In a moment that would seal his fate, he abandoned his flagship, boarded a smaller, faster vessel, and gave chase, leaving his vast fleet leaderless and in disarray. Demoralized by their commander's desertion, the remaining forces fought on for a time, but their spirit was broken. One by one, the great ships surrendered to Agrippa. The Battle of Actium was over. Antony's forces had collapsed, and the war was effectively won. The lovers fled back to Egypt, pursued by the relentless Octavian. Their end was tragic. Hearing a false report of Cleopatra's death, Antony fell on his own sword. When Cleopatra learned of his fate and saw that Octavian intended to parade her through Rome in chains, she took her own life, reputedly by the bite of an asp. With his rivals gone, Octavian returned to Rome not just as a victor, but as the undisputed master of the Roman world. He would soon be granted the title Augustus, becoming Rome's first emperor and ushering in an unprecedented era of peace and stability known as the Pax Romana. The Republic was dead, and from the ashes of civil war and a legendary romance, the Roman Empire was born.